You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com. You wanted it, you got it. A radio program that helps teach you options trading inside and out, basic to complex. This is Options Bootcamp. Whether you want to learn how to protect your portfolio, generate income, or even become a master of volatility, the Options Bootcamp drill instructors will break it all down for you. Now, let's get you into peak options trading shape. Here are your Options Bootcamp drill instructors.
All right, everybody. That music can mean only one thing. Education Wednesday is back. That means boot camp. The old OBC is back. Program out there for you. The busy retail, maybe some of you not too retail anymore. Some of you getting pretty savvy out there after listening to the show. Either way, if you're just diving into the options waters for the first time, or if you've been swimming for a little bit, we'll be your lifeguards out there. Maybe help you improve your stroke a little bit. Certainly try to save your life in these rough and volatile waters that we're all swimming through together. My name is Mark Longo from theoptionsinsider.com, as well as, of course, from the ever-evolving Options Insider Radio Network. One of those new evolutions kicking in today. We've been talking for a while about all the cool things we have to do. In fact, we're doing a special double Options Bootcamp Palooza here for all of the live listeners. That means all the folks who've jumped on the Options Insider Plus and Options Insider Pro bandwagon will be able to join us live there via those fun new members live stream servers. So get on over there if you want to hear both episodes back to back today. You don't want to wait. You want it in your hot little ear holes right now. Of course, you folks after the fact can get it on the podcast. You'll get the second episode next week out there. And how do you learn more? Of course, you know where to go. theoptionsinsider.com/plus or /pro will get you there. /shop will also get you to where everything is. And it'll explain all in one fell swoop what we're talking about here. Basically, if you like things faster, you want more. You want more in your ear holes. You want to get things live. You like to listen to all of our shows live. Get them the second they're out. You don't want to wait for on demand. Then Plus is for you. And of course, if you want all that plus more, you want exclusive shows. You have a lot of questions, and definitely the audience of this show does. Then we have the new Pro feed as well. You can get all of the shows live, plus some exclusive shows like Options Oddities, which goes out every Friday, and the big Pro Q&A session. Had two of those already. Those were awesome. Had the Flow Master himself yesterday. Had the Oracle of New Hampshire the week before. So you folks hitting us up, deluging us with those questions, you want to check those out? Just go Pro, and you can see them all for yourselves. They're all there in that exclusive new podcast feed for our Pro members as well. You can get all of that stuff forever, pretty much. So it's really cool. Check it out, theoptionsinsider.com/shop. Get you to all of it as we keep on rolling. And you know what else we're rolling into? The black-hatted one himself, who's joining me for this double OBC Palooza, Mr. Dan Passarelli, a.k.a. the founder of Market Taker Mentoring, a.k.a. the author of one or two options-oriented tomes, a.k.a. the black-hatted one himself. Mr. P, welcome back to Options Bootcamp. Sir, are you ready for a double episode extravaganza?
Hey, Senior Longo, I'm ready, baby. Let's do it.
All right, then. The man is ready. His black hat is on. It is time for a little bit of the old options drills.
Well, in bunch, time for our favorite pastime, option drills. We're going to take the strategies learned during the show and teach you how they can be employed to achieve a specific objective. Do you hear me?
Yes, sir!
All right, everybody, welcome to Options Drills, the portion where we teach you how to maybe turn it up a notch and take what we've been learning about on the show here and apply it in some interesting and fun new ways. Got a fun new way for that in store for you in a second. First, let's go on out to Mr. P. You know, he's been busy fielding your questions, answering your all sorts of queries, and discussing all sorts of fun topics over there in the land of MTM. Mr. P, a lot's been going on since the last time you and I beamed in here on the show. A lot of vol across the whole marketplace, a lot of hither and yon in certain crazy markets, a lot of, shall we say, meminess, to coin a phrase, going on in a lot of names. Like, pick a day, what's popping today? Apparently today the hot one is WWE. Who knew? So all sorts of fun things. Wendy's yesterday, Clover Health. It's an insane world we're living in. What's lighting up your tape and what's been catching your eye out there in the land of MTM since our last show, sir?
Oh, Mark, meminess and deediness. Holy cow. Yeah, I've been working. I think I mentioned this on the show. I've been working on a really clever little scanner that finds short squeezes. And man, it totally identified Clover 2 days ago. 800% profit. Boom. Really interesting stuff.
So you're saying the next time you're downtown, Gibson's is on you. That's what I'm hearing between the lines here.
100%. I mean, you're not invited, but yes, 100%.
How did I know? Just you, a solo Gibson's meal just for you.
Oh yeah. So yeah, I've been watching a lot of these meme stocks, man. Interesting. Just put out a video on our sister site's YouTube channel. You can search for a Traders Exclusive YouTube channel, comparing what I would do if I had to choose between Rocket and AMC. So you'll have to check out the YouTube video to see that, though.
Interesting. Give us a quick regaling really quickly, though, on the Clover Health. You said it's in the can already. You did all right. What, were you just gobbling up the stock? You going long some calls? What were you doing out there, sir?
You know, the really, really cheapy ones where the stock is under $10, sometimes I'll buy the stock. But otherwise, I mean, I look at the implied volatility of the calls first, you know. I'm not really afraid to overpay on calls on some of these meme stocks, because if you look at implied volatility as the priced in future volatility, when you get some of these moves where the stock goes from 9 to 28, the volatility still in hindsight is underpriced, even when even when the implied volatility is 50 points above where it should be. So yeah, I'm totally okay buying calls on stuff that I think is going to pop. And then I guess I'll steal my own thunder a little bit as far as the YouTube video goes. But just looking at it, I love, like, one of my big secret sauce things that I guess I can share with our listeners is I love looking at the short squeeze candidates that actually have earnings, like the ones that are just losing money hands over fist, like AMC, end up being much worse candidates for these short squeezes. I mean, if a bunch of apes on Reddit decide to get together and buy it, and all the little hedge fund creepers who are also in Wall Street bets watching to see what happens throw all their money behind it, hey, it's going to go up even if they're losing money temporarily. But it becomes a much more natural short squeeze play when the company's actually making money. Maybe not as much as some big short seller thinks they should be making, but if they're making money, that's a harder fought battle for somebody to short the stock. I mean, AMC could easily have gone out of business, and who knows, really took it on the chin throughout this whole pandemic. So maybe they'll suffer for years. But a company like Rocket, where they're doing pretty good. If I'm not mistaken, their last earnings, they missed by like 2 cents, still had what looked to me like a really great quarter. But, they took the stock down, and now, of course, it's clawing its way back and doing pretty well the last couple of days.
What's funny, too, is that so many of these quote-unquote meme names aren't even really short squeezes anymore. Ford's pop in, and they actually make money and aren't heavily shorted and have a lot of float. WWE, same thing today. Wendy's the other day. A lot of these don't qualify in what used to be the traditional filter for these meme names, which was, of course, heavily shorted. Now they're moving beyond. Things just have to have a low price and be able to be driven up by that Wall Street bets crowd. And now all of a sudden, that's what qualifies out there. So fascinating stuff. I'm sure we'll have more to get to in a little bit. Check out our pro Q&A we did yesterday with Henry. A lot of interesting discussions, a lot of great questions you guys had about how to trade things around AMC, how to structure trades, what it means when the skew says this, and all sorts of fun things. So check that out if you haven't already over there on the pro feed. Let's go on out now. Today's options drill is inspired by a question from you folks. This one came from Nico. He says, hello. Lots of O's. Hello, boot camp. Well, hello, Nico. He says, loving the knowledge. Well, thank you. He says, thanks so much for everything that you guys do for noobs like me. You guys are too hard on yourselves. You are not noobs. You listen into this show, so you're already beyond a noob. They say, speaking of being a noob, I think I'm thinking about dipping my toes into the crypto options pool. I'm mostly Bitcoin, but maybe ETH down the road as well. Anything I should be on the lookout for in terms of pitfalls or roadblocks versus my usual Apple and SPY options stomping grounds? Ooh, there's a lot of differences between Apple and SPY and Bitcoin options. I have my thoughts, but Mr. P, I know you have some thoughts here as well. So maybe I'll kick it off with you. I know you've been a little bit reticent to dive into the Bitcoin options fray. What do you have to say here for Nico, who's thinking about diving in, and what should he be on the lookout for, sir?
Yeah, Nico. So look, options, in my opinion, are the best financial instrument created in the last 100 years. They level the playing field against the Wall Street pros and the Main Street Joes. They're great. And I love them on crypto options also conceptually. But I'm going to like them a lot more and get behind them once they're listed on a real exchange that has a real clearing firm behind it. Because if there's no clearing, if there's no accountability, throughout all financial history, like defaults happen all the time. If some bozo goes in and sells $10 million worth of these calls and you happen to buy a couple of them and you make a whole bunch of money on them and he loses, $100 million and only has, $5,000 in his bank account, guess who doesn't get to collect on their profits? You. So when there's some, rickshaw crypto firm that, some nerd founded in his basement and he still lives in his mom's basement and he's running this like big crypto exchange, you probably shouldn't trade those options. But, maybe if SIBO or one of the other like real exchanges list these or Gemini, Gemini's kind of a real exchange too. But there's my dog. But
your dog agrees with you. No crappy exchanges for crypto, sir.
Yeah, like there's just no accountability. There's no clearing. But if like SIBO lists it or one of the real exchanges lists it, and there's a clearing firm so that there's accountability, like then, yeah, I'm 100% behind it. It's going to be such a better way to trade crypto than just buying or selling it. Like then you don't have to worry about some hacker hacked in and the exchange doesn't exist anymore and sorry, your money's just gone. Or the situation I described too, where some bozo defaults and, sorry, you're never going to get your money.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack here, Nico. So we'll just walk through it step by step. Dan hit on a lot of it. But the first thing I would recommend to you, Nico, is if you're not doing so already, and anyone else who's intrigued by this space, and hey, it's sold off nearly 50% in the last month, maybe you should be intrigued by it just from a movement and volatility perspective. Check out our Crypto Rundown program that airs every Monday, 2 p.m. Central for our Pro and our Plus listeners, or of course, after the fact on your podcast device of choice. We talk about this every week in a lot of detail. So check that out if you're not doing so already, listeners. That's first step. Now, second thing you need to do, a lot of things to walk through. First off, if you're used to trading, you said Apple and SPY. I'm sure a lot of our listeners are in a similar boat. They're trading fairly liquid names, perhaps some crazy meme ones now as well, probably on a big brokerage platform, your TDs, your Schwabs, you name it out there, E-Trades, IB, whatever it is. First off, you're not going to be able to use those accounts for most of this trading out here. So you're going to have to create a second account somewhere. That's the first thing you're going to have to know. Secondly, getting back to Dan's point about things trading in weird spots, the big dog right now for crypto options, and let's focus mostly on Bitcoin because that's where the lion's share of the action is. There is some ETH and some other stuff out there, but they're still pretty small. So from an options perspective, the big dog is Bitcoin, and the big venue is Deribit. If you haven't heard of it, it's overseas. It's a European venue based out of the Netherlands. So that already should tell you some issues there. They're not approved for trading by U.S. regulators here. So if you're a U.S. customer, you go over there to the Deribit website with your U.S. IP address. It's going to tell you, hey, thanks for visiting, but no thanks. You're not allowed to trade here. That's against their terms of service. It's against U.S. regulations. So the only way to really trade there would be to use some sort of VPN type tool to mask your IP. That's not an ideal way to commit a large amount of capital with that strange sort of Damocles lurking over your head that they could ban you and kick you at any time. So you're violating regulations. You're violating their terms of service. We don't recommend that you do that. So Deribit out of the running really for most of our U.S. customers. If you're overseas and you want to, and I know a lot of you are judging by some of your feedback for these episodes, then have at it. I think we have a listener in the Netherlands right now. So go to town on Deribit if you want. But for our U.S. listeners, not so much. Also, Dan mentioned the clearing. Clearing here in the U.S., you don't have to worry about it. OCC backstops all of your trades. They're not going anywhere. So even in crazy market moves and sell-offs we've seen over the past few decades, OCC is still standing. They're kind of the one utility that really didn't have any problems out there when a lot of the other market centers did. So they'll be there to backstop your trades. Not so much, as Dan mentioned, in the Bitcoin realm. There's really no centralized clearing outside of some of the names I'm going to get to in a second. They try to get around that by doing what's called fully collateralized trades. So you put up all of the money you need to do to trade up front, effectively in a bit of an escrow account. And then that's an attempt to try to do an end run around that by saying, hey, the money's already there. So no matter what happens with the trade, if you need to collect it, you can get the capital. And so that's a way around that centralized clearing. It's up to you how much faith you have in that kind of fully collateralized type process. But that's kind of how they're trying to do an end run around that. Getting here to the U.S., where I know most of you hang your hats, there are some venues you've heard of that trade crypto. For example, CME, you may have heard of them. They do have some crypto offerings. Their first one, the biggest, the beefiest, the big dog, are their Bitcoin futures. Now, you're used to your regular equity options that have a 100 share multiplier. These have a 5 coin multiplier on them. So Bitcoin somewhere, I haven't checked it around, somewhere around 30,000 right now. 5x that. You're talking $1.50. It's a lot for most people to bite off. So those futures, extremely expensive. As a result, they do some paper sometimes. We've seen them go up to like 40,000 contracts sometimes. But for the most part, it's big institutional players, not really for the audience of this show. There are options they just launched earlier this year on those futures, but same problem. The futures aren't super liquid. The options are much less liquid. They do under 100 contracts a day, most days much less. So figure that out. An option that's trading 50, 80 contracts a day, maybe 30. It's going to be very, very wide. So not exactly ideal to have that. On top of that, of course, you need to set up a futures account to trade all of these. That could be a bit of a prohibitive step for a lot of you out there as well. The one thing that does attract me, I think for a lot of the audience of this show will be intriguing. CME just came on our TWIFO program a few weeks ago and announced their micro Bitcoin futures. Everything small is huge these days. And the micro Bitcoin are going to be 1/10 of a Bitcoin. So it's 1/10 the size of a traditional 1 Bitcoin contract. Since the main future is 5x, this is 1/50th the size of their regular futures. These have been doing some decent paper, and there's a lot of interest in these. Everything micro at CME is really blown up right now from a volume perspective. So I wouldn't think it's going to take as long as it did for the regular futures to get options. So keep an eye on these. We may see options on these sooner rather than later. I don't know if the end of the year may be optimistic, but if they keep doing the numbers that they're doing, I think definitely within a year, we will see options. That's why they launched these, or they want to put options on these too. So that's, I think, probably one of the better gateway drugs, quote unquote, for a lot of the U.S. listeners. If you're comfortable creating a futures account, and then CME, at least you know, is going to be there. They clear those trades. The clearing issue goes away again. CME clears all those trades for you. So the micro futures might be a good way to play on the small side And then also you have the clearing aspect, and then hopefully the options will come. They have ETH futures as well. So if you like ETH, that's a place you can play as well. On the options front, the real, pretty much only game in town is Ledger X here for US customers. Again, they were on our Crypto Rundown show not too long ago. So check that out if you haven't already. We had a long conversation with them. They're really one of the only approved exchanges in the US to trade crypto options. Now, same deal. You can't go to this through your TD Ameritrade account or whatever. You have to go to Ledger X and create an account with them. It's one of the weird things going on in the crypto space. The brokers are also operating as the quote-unquote exchanges. So the term exchange has a bit of a more loose definition in the crypto world. People calling themselves exchanges are really brokers and vice versa. So you have to go to Ledger X and create an account with them. Their options are on 0.01 Bitcoin. So much smaller size, 1/100th of a Bitcoin. So you buy one call out there, it's for 0.01 Bitcoin. If you buy 37 of them, you're 0.37 Bitcoins. So that's pretty much how it works from a multiplier perspective. And a few other things out there that are kind of interesting. They do offer most of your basic strategies. You can buy a call, you can buy a put, obviously, and you could turn around, sell covered calls, and you could sell puts. That's probably as far as I would take it on there. I've looked at some of their chains. They have some liquidity pretty much around front month at the money. You can get things off in a reasonably tight fashion, reasonably liquid fashion. The farther away you get from at the money and the farther away you get from front month, that liquidity does tend to drop off a bit. So if you're doing front month kind of covered calls, this is a great place to do it on, especially because these are, I should mention, these are physically settled as well. So you're going to, when your contract goes into expiration, if it's in the money, you're going to buy or sell Bitcoin based on how many of these you have there. So if you're sitting on some Bitcoin, you want, or fractions of it, and you want to perhaps trade some options against it, this is a great way to do that. So your covered call will actually, they could take away your Bitcoin if that's what you want, get it called away, or vice versa. I should mention there's no auto exercise on Ledger X. That's a bit of a weird thing. So if you want to have your Bitcoin called away or vice versa, then you have to contact them and submit a manual exercise request right around expiration. So that's an issue. I brought that up with them. They are working to get rid of that. They realize that's a bit of a needless hassle, but that's something to bear in mind. Don't expect your contracts at Ledger X to auto exercise. So that's kind of the basics. I would keep it on Ledger X there to your basic buy call, buy put, sell call, covered call really, and sell put to get into the underlying there. Once you get farther beyond that, you start doing multi-leg spreads. You're going to pay a lot of slippage because those spreads are going to get kind of wide. So just bear that in mind. It's good for your basic use cases. And that's kind of what they even tout on their website. They say, come here, do some covered calls. I think are 90% of their business over there. If you're wondering how much it costs to trade there, it's the lower of 15 cents a contract or 20% of the options premium. That's a bit of a weird one there. So the fees in the crypto space are still a little bit kind of out there. A bit of a wild card before I toss it back to Dan for some last thoughts here. Canada has approved some ETFs for Bitcoin. The US obviously has not. People are hoping the Canada approvals will pave the way for something here in the US. Obviously, when a Bitcoin ETF is approved here in the US, when or if, that will really open the floodgates to a lot of liquidity. People can put that in their securities account. They can obviously trade options on that. So the game's going to change. But right now, there are some brokers who will allow you to access some of those Canadian ETFs. I know IB, I think, is one of them. A few others out there will allow you to do that. So you can go out and at least trade the underlying through some of these platforms. I know one of these Canadian ETFs is also optionable. It's the Galaxy Bitcoin ETF, the CI Galaxy Bitcoin ETF, which if you're wondering, it's priced off of the Bloomberg Galaxy Bitcoin Index. I don't know much about it. I'm not recommending it. I'm just telling you there are ETFs out there that do have options on them. It's up to your broker what access they allow you to have on that. That's an international product. Obviously, it's going to be in Canadian dollars, so there's going to be some FX issues there as well. But if you're really gung-ho about getting the options, that could be another way to go. So there you go. Kind of a bit of a lay of the crypto options landscape, some pitfalls, some things to look out for, some things to avoid, and some things to potentially be hopeful for. Dan, after all of that, I need a bit of a break. Any final thoughts here, final words on trading crypto options for our listeners, sir?
Okay. Just going back, if you're trading, make sure that you're trading on something on an exchange that has clearing, because otherwise you're on the hook. CME has clearing, But, the liquidity is not necessarily always there, is what Mark said. And the size of, the big contract sounds like it's pretty darn big. So, I think it'll probably just get better and better as volatility increases for, just as long-term interest increases in Bitcoin and the rest of its friends.
Speaking of friends, we have a lot of them, so let's get to them. A little bit of your mail call.
Mail call. Time to look at questions submitted by our listeners.
All right, everybody. Let's get to it. Some of your questions. This next one comes in. It's more of a comment here. Oh, this name sounds familiar. How could you forget this name? Austin Beerwinkle. I just love that name. He wrote in a while ago. I do believe Dan said his question was long and his wife mocked him, as I recall. He's got a follow-up. He says, news from the front lines. Check this out, Dan. This is fun. He says, as my very first real money trade last Tuesday, June 1st, I bought a calendar spread. Oh, he went straight to the calendars. Wow. He's going to options 201 here. He says, I bought a calendar spread at the 50 strike in AMC. Oh, he says in parentheses, I know, not a recommended beginner trade, but you can blame that on the confidence I've gained through 137 episodes of boot camp. Thanks to you guys. Well, not a bad time to be long some Vega and some Delta in a meme. I doubled my $60 outlay by Wednesday morning. Puts in parentheses, probably should have waited for the 6X return coming later that day. But I guess that just means I need to work on my exit strategy. Another boot camp recruit going into battle. OBC for life. Yours truly, Austin Beerwinkle. This is awesome. Dan, this encapsulates everything that is fun, everything that is awesome about this show. I'm so happy so many people out there are really getting value out of it. I'm really starting to feel empowered to be able to make these first starter options trades. I'm stunned that he went for a calendar first. I don't know if I've ever recommended that in the 137 plus episodes of this show. But again, Dan, that kind of shows how confident he feels. He's going 201 right out of the gate, and he made money doing it, sir. What do you have to say for Mr. Beerwinkle here?
Man, it's great. I love it. I will, be able to smile the rest of the day now. That's fantastic. I love it. That is an interesting trade to start with. And by George, you called the frickin' thing just right. So yeah, doubling your money. What was that? Overnight or within a couple of days there? Yeah, you can't be sad about that one. Don't feel like you have to stay at that level of trade complexity. Take that profit and roll it into some more good trades and education and all the things you need to really make this stuff happen, man.
Yeah, hopefully now that you made money with your first trade, your wife will lay off you a little bit and and let you trade a little more and maybe stop slamming Dan in the process, even though I do that enough for all of us out there. Unfortunately, that music listeners means we come up against it for this episode, but don't worry. All of you Pro and Plus folks out there, you get to hear episode 2 right now of this double options bootcamp extravaganza. You guys have a literal metric ton of questions. We're going to see how many we could fight through on this next episode. Dan, we got some good ones coming up, so I'm excited. Hopefully all you Pro and Plus listeners are excited. If you're not Pro or Plus, you know where to go. TheOptionsInsider.com/shop is the easiest way to find all of it. /pro/plus should also get you there depending on what you're looking at. You get access to all this cool stuff and a whole bunch more. There's all kinds of new bells and whistles coming any minute down there, so stay tuned. We're putting out new updates every week with cool stuff like the Pro and Plus servers going live this week for the live stream. So lots of cool stuff. So check it out, theoptionsinsider.com/pro or /plus. And Mr. P, before they go, if our listeners out there want to check out your epic upcoming event or maybe sign up for your newsletter or get all these cool YouTube videos you're putting out, where should they go? What should they do?
My awesome upcoming event has already happened, Mark.
Did it already happen? Man, I'm out of the loop here. See, I don't get invited to your cool events. I'm still waiting for my Gibson dinner here, so I'm behind.
You were on the list, but you were just like way at the bottom of the list. We just didn't get that far down, but you were on the list. Trust me. So for those of you who attended that, or maybe if you didn't, you missed that, but you want to maybe get even in tighter with the market taker community, we're kind of keeping this a little bit on the down low, but we're holding a mastermind in the fall, and we'd love to tell you about it. This is a very intimate setting of about 4 to 6 people here in person in Chicago, where we trade together real money accounts. It is the ultimate trader experience. You can go over to our website and just scroll down into the footer and fill out our assessment or book a strategy session with us. And we'd love to have somebody from our trader success team give you a call and tell you all about the mastermind, see if it's a good fit for you.
Market Taker, don't forget I always forget the second T. Maybe that's why I don't get invited to your things, Dan. I'm always going to Market Taker with 1 T. Market Taker with 2 T's.com. Check out all that cool stuff. On behalf of Mr. P and indeed myself, keep trading it up out there. We love to see that so many of you are not just surviving, but thriving in these markets. We're going to dive into all your feedback, what you're up to, coming up on our very next episode. So stay tuned for that. And we'll see you back here next episode, and indeed next week for another episode of Options Bootcamp.
You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.